I said, I think this is something we need to do in oral history. If we had somebody that wanted to speak, we asked them if they wanted to give a testimony. They wanted to talk. We've interviewed, on audio tape, it's 330. We have others.
In 2006, the museum established a writing workshop for Holocaust survivors called the Memory Project. Under the guidance of Dr. Robert Hutchison, survivors developed writing skills while sharing their Holocaust memories and insights through prose and poetry. These writings are now on view on the museum's website, hmlc.org. Yom HaShoah is a community-wide commemoration featuring eyewitness accounts of the Holocaust from survivors and witnesses. People come from all parts of the community to join together to memorialize those who did not survive the Holocaust and to honor those who did.
What we learned through the years was, telling the Holocaust story and the story of the Holocaust was great, but we had to be relevant with what was going on today.
Educating today's youth about the horrific events of the Holocaust is more important now than ever.
Just as you see some people today condemning other people and other groups.
We're trying to bridge the gap with an exhibit like Change Begins With Me, where they can take the issues of the lessons of the Holocaust and relate them to issues that they are now reading about today.
The interactive really helps you see what's going on recently.
It showed that although those events were more than 70 years ago, things like this are still happening and that our job isn't done.
And all of these people or these groups have taken action against prejudice and discrimination.
It's important to me that I have something to show, that I'm not speaking just as a storyteller. I'm speaking of something that actually physically happened to me and my family.
You go away with a different feeling and a different thought. How are you going to use our teaching you the lessons to make the world a better place? Who are you going to impact?
It shows that as a person, you're not an individual, but you're a global citizen. It's your responsibility to help others.
I think it's so important to spread awareness about these things, and it's really easy, especially for young people, to feel like things like the Holocaust don't matter anymore, that they're in the past, but anti-Semitism, racism, and all kinds of things like that, they still exist, and it's so important to learn about them and have these conversations, and I think that the Holocaust Museum really triggers that.
And I think we can all agree that living here in St. Louis, it's more relevant than it has ever been. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard and saw her in the video, and now she is here in person. Please welcome Ella Schmidt.
Good evening. I'd just like to express how honored I am to be here with you tonight, and I'd like to thank everyone at the Holocaust Museum and Learning Center for providing me with this incredible opportunity. The Wednesday our 9th grade class went to the St. Louis Holocaust Museum, I woke up feeling grateful that the day would serve as a break from pop quizzes, note-taking, and cramming for algebra midterms. The tired air, as sharp and unforgiving as it had been the day before, looked on bleakly as 115-year-olds arranged ourselves into familiar social factions, filling 3 groaning buses with our absent-minded chatter. Our conversation sounded routine, like we were reading off of a script. It felt weird to talk about where we were going, even if it was wrong not to. In a word, it was normal, the kind of morning I would never remember if it weren't for the day that followed. I didn't even realize how uneasy I felt until our tour guide asked the group if we were nervous. Not one person raised their hand. The nerves bubbling up inside me were so turbulent that the idea of no one else feeling nervous was laughable. I knew I wasn't the only liar in the room. I was nervous that I would say the wrong thing at the wrong time, and nervous that it was wrong for me to be nervous at all. The deaths of millions of people is nearly impossible to wrap your brain around, which makes it hard to hear and even harder to talk about. I think that's why I watched in awe as a Holocaust survivor spoke to 100 adolescents and countless additional adults about this very subject. Without any form of notes or outline, this woman spoke to us candidly and openly about the horrors she experienced firsthand, while still managing to be one of the most eloquent speakers I've ever heard. While her personal story provided this era with a direct element of tangibility, it also forced us all to remember that not one survivor or witness of the Holocaust can ever act as a spokesperson for the 11 million voices that the post-Holocaust world will never hear from. While we may often picture them among a sea of indecipherable skeletal bodies, each one of these voices represents a life, a family, and a brilliant mind of which the world was robbed. Around every corner of the museum was another concentrated dose of what it was like to be a Jew living in Germany during the Holocaust. From the despicable instances of propaganda spewed out by the German government to poignant images of the mass torment endured by Jews in concentration camps, this museum made the Holocaust much more palpable to a 15-year-old who was born in a different millennium than the one in which the largest hate crime in history occurred. This, I found, was the greatest value of experiencing the Holocaust Museum. It disallowed me to distance myself from this great hate crime and forced me instead to bear witness. As young people, we are all too easily detached from a history that is on our shoulders as much as anyone else's. With anti-Semitic incidents and hate crimes on the rise worldwide, the seemingly harmless mindset of forgetting the past in order to move forward is in fact dangerous and hints at the recurrence of darker times. If anything, educating today's youth about the horrific events of the Holocaust is more important now than ever, as we are the last generation who will ever have the opportunity to speak with a Holocaust survivor. I woke up feeling grateful for a break from a typical school day and came home grateful for the life-altering experience with which my fellow ninth graders and I were provided. The Holocaust Museum and Learning Center will play an imperative role in altering the perspectives of generations to come, and I hope it will continue to expand the public's understanding of the Holocaust. Rather than dissociating ourselves from the past, it is everyone's responsibility to understand the relevance of the Holocaust. Only then can we truly move forward to a world without streets littered with hate crimes. Thank you.
Got a little standing ovation out there. Thank you, Ella. Now for our final presentation. Jewish historian and philosopher Michael Friedlander once said, "Vision requires far more than the eye. It takes the whole person, for what we see is no more and no less than what we are." This statement applies to our dear friend and visionary, Gloria Feldman. After losing family members and surviving the Holocaust, her world was shaped by this tragic event, and she became passionate about doing whatever she could to educate people about it. She has been at the forefront with us, providing the resources we need to offer high-quality education, Holocaust education. She began by funding an educators' conference every year, allowing us to provide everything free of charge. If teachers outside the St. Louis region couldn't attend a conference, HMLC Holocaust educators could take the education workshops on the road to various school districts in the region and give teachers the tools they needed. In 2009, we started talking about how we could reflect the lessons of the Holocaust through contemporary issues and other genocides. Gloria was intrigued by this idea because she saw the importance of bringing relevance to Holocaust history. When we approached her about developing something really unique to our museum to address issues related to hate, discrimination, and ethnic conflict in today's world, Change Begins With Me was born. Because of her vision and generosity, we were able to bring our dream exhibition to fruition. She has been a force behind the establishment of the Reuben and Gloria Feldman Family Education Institute, which has allowed us to bring intellectual and financial resources together under the guidance of its stellar advisory committee. Representatives of local universities, education professionals, rabbinic leadership, and organizations committed to strengthening and diversifying our community meet regularly to share ideas. Some of our most creative programs and exhibits have been generated during those meetings. The Reuben and Gloria Feldman Family Education Institute has truly allowed us a seat at the table with many organizations to collaborate and partner, and for that we are extremely grateful. Gloria, will you join me on stage, please? The Visionary Leadership Award, presented to Gloria Feldman, with respect and appreciation, you inspire us all. Now, Ellen's going to give you this one. We're going to get a little shot over here. The two of you, Ellen's going to give you the award. Now hold it like this. Don't drop it.
Kleenex, water. Thank you, Jean. Thank you, Ella. I'm so humbled and very nervous, I must tell you. This is very, very and extremely difficult for me to speak to you this evening. However, I am speaking on behalf of the millions who could not speak for themselves, for those who perished, for those who were never given the opportunity to speak, for the liberators who witnessed the horrors and could not speak about it, for the ones who did survive and can never forget the past, for my siblings, my grandparents, my aunts, uncles, and cousins who were all murdered. My life was spared, and I feel the obligation and responsibility to teach that change begins with me. I do not wish that anyone experiences the horrors that my family endured. Education has always been an important item to Reuben and me, as it was to our parents. I chose the Education Institute to the Holocaust Museum and Learning Center to ensure that as the years go by, there will always be someone teaching and telling the stories that will no longer be able to have and to be heard from a person as I am speaking here before you. We have to teach about the atrocities, the deniers, the lost victims, but most of all, about the buyers that didn't do anything. I have to thank Leah Wolf, who called me several years ago and said, "You and Reuben have to become